After 5 years and 36 rounds, we can finally say it. Canelo has put an end to the Gennadiy-Golovkin trilogy. He won with a unanimous decision right here in Las Vegas. But after we witnessed, is it possible that Canelo's stock actually went down after the Golovkin fight? I know it sounds crazy. You know, you have a rivalry for 5 years and 3 fights with all this controversy. You win definitively and your stock goes down. But allow me to explain it because it needs to make sense, and I'm going to make it make sense right here on Fighting Words with me, Andreas Hale. So Canelo won the 3rd fight against Gennadiy Golovkin, a rivalry for 5 years, and he won it pretty widely according to most people. But it lacked the fireworks of the first 2 fights, and the end result had some controversy. This controversy was a little bit different. Where the first 2 fights was, we thought Gennadiy won. This fight was, how are these damn scorecards so close? One judge had it 112, 116 for Canelo. The other 2 judges had it 115, 113 for Canelo. And everybody got on social media saying, how could this fight be this close? The judges are blind. Well, they weren't blind. They actually watched the fight, and it presents a problem that I'm going to discuss a little bit later, but let's look at it for what it is. Canelo had a great game plan. He started off fast. I'm going to use these quotes for fast. Beating Gennadiy to the punch for the first 6 or 7 rounds, and he had this very big lead. But then something happened. Canelo got tired. He didn't move as much. He wasn't throwing his hands like he used to. And Gennadiy started winning rounds late in the fight. Now look, if you're scoring at home, if you're actually scoring at home, this will make sense to you. But if you're just watching the fight, you think this is a blowout and you hear the scorecards, you're like, oh, that's crazy. Canelo won. I don't know how these judges did it, but they score rounds by the round, not by the overall fight. If you look at it, 2 of the 3 judges scored 4 of the last 5 rounds for Golovkin. Now, the first 2 rounds, nothing really happened. So if you decided to give Golovkin the first or second round, now Golovkin's won 5 rounds out of 12, which would mean a 115, 113 scorecard. And if you didn't, and you just gave him 4, that's 116, 112. The fight was close because Canelo ran out of gas. There was no robbery here. Golovkin wasn't great. Let's just be honest. Look, Canelo only landed 130 punches. In the second fight, which Canelo won a close decision, Canelo landed 201 punches. Golovkin only landed 120 punches, which is by far the lowest punch output and punches landed in a 12-round fight in his career. It was close. What I just said, 130 to 120 is very close. Now, Canelo had the edge in power punches. Gennadiy landed a lot of jabs, but down the stretch, Golovkin fought a better fight, and he's 40 years old, and Canelo is 32. Oddsmakers said that Canelo was going to blow Golovkin out, and it looked like it was on its way to getting there, but then it just didn't happen. And those scorecards, they're not egregious, guys. I know what you're going to say. Go watch the fight again, because I did. So 116, 112 is what I had while I was ringside. And I went home and still had the same scorecard. 115, 113, that's cool as well. But this is Canelo's fault. Let me explain why his stock went down. Now look, Canelo is 32 years old, right? In the prime of his boxing career. And he was a 3.5 to 1 favorite in most sports books. The man was expected to knock out Golovkin, which I thought was ridiculous because Golovkin's never been knocked out or knocked down before. Nevertheless, Canelo's a younger, fresher fighter. Golovkin is 40. The expectation was that Canelo would blow him out. And it started off that way, but it didn't end that way. Now, at the end of the night, Canelo gets that win. He gets to say that he was the better man in the trilogy. But there's a problem. And it's starting to rear its head, and it makes it look like 2022 was not a good year for Canelo. And the problem is Canelo's gas tank. Now, look, guys, Canelo's a fantastic fighter. I'm not going to take anything away from him. He's the undisputed super middleweight champion for a reason. He's made history. He's done great things. He's been on the pound for pound list. But if you look at the Bivol fight and you look at the fight with Triple G, 2 things show up. If Canelo starts off fast, he starts running out of gas and throws less punches. His punch output is a problem. Fortunately, Gennadiy Golovkin is 40 years old, so Father Time may have just had his way with him. I can't discredit Canelo's defense. It was phenomenal. But that's what Canelo's defense does. But the problem is that if you can't get rid of a 40-year-old man, and I'm not trying to say Gennadiy is washed by any means, but if you're expected to be dominant and you start losing gas down the stretch, you're laying the blueprint on how to beat you. Seriously. At 32 years old, which sounds young, Canelo has 460 rounds. That's a lot of rounds. 62 pro fights. That's a lot of fights. So that 32 isn't as young as it used to be. And he's altering his style to match his work rate. Now look, it worked for somebody like Floyd Mayweather, who later in his years started focusing heavily on defense, being economical and precise with his output to win fights. But what Floyd did that Canelo's not doing is Floyd was very selective of his opponents. He wasn't going after a lot of young guys, aside from Canelo, who he knew he could take advantage of. But Canelo's still trying to bark up the biggest tree, and he wants a rematch with Bivol, who outworked him, was bigger, stronger, and roughly the same age, but with less pro rounds under his belt. And the result was Canelo lost. Canelo wants to go do that again? Not a great idea. On the other side, if he chooses to stay at 168 and defend those super middleweight titles, David Benavidez comes to mind. Now, David Benavidez is a punching machine. Combination puncher, doesn't give a damn and comes forward. If Canelo's not busy, he could lose to Benavidez, who is a big 168 pounder, because he's going to get outworked. If Canelo isn't thoughtful with his approach moving forward of his opponents, we may be seeing Canelo on the back end of his career, where for most fighters, 32 is the prime between 29 and 32. 32 might be wearing Canelo down. I'm not saying it's over, guys. What I'm saying is pay attention to what Canelo's been doing. The punch output is going down. The quality of opponents continues to go up, and it makes it very tough for Canelo to go out there and be dominant if his opponents won't go away. Dmitry Bivol wouldn't go away, so Canelo had to fight an uphill battle that he ended up losing. Golovkin wouldn't go away and ended up winning rounds down the stretch. Canelo's stock is going down, guys. When you have the Alexander Usyks of the world, when you have Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, yeah, they're a little bit older, but they don't have as many fights as Canelo does. When you have the young guys like Devin Haney coming up, Jesse Ben Rodriguez, Naoya Inoue, they're challenging Canelo for the pound-for-pound throne. But Canelo wants to be great, and his daring to be great could end up costing him in the long run. Ultimately, 2022 is Canelo's worst year as a pro. Forget the Floyd Mayweather loss. He was supposed to lose that fight when you really think about it. He's fighting the best fighter in the world. He was getting an opportunity that most would never get. But these last two fights have finally shown a chink in Canelo's armor, and that stock is going down. Maybe he fixes it. He says he's going to take some time off, get his hand fixed, and he'll be back in action. He's targeting Bivol, but maybe he changes his mind and fights David Benavidez. He is going to be a promotional free agent after all, so he can go and do whatever he wants. And maybe he comes back in May, or maybe he takes a year off and comes back in September. Maybe he can fix all this. But right here, right now, I'm going to say it. Canelo Alvarez stock has taken a hit, even though he won a very, very spirited trilogy with Triple G. 2022 ain't your year, my man. We'll see what happens in 2023. So you guys sound off. Do you think I'm crazy in my assessment? Were those scorecards absolutely nuts, or am I making sense? Is Canelo the fighter that he was in 2021 or 2020 when he rampaged through those weight classes and became the undisputed super middleweight champion? Or do you see what I see? A Canelo that's kind of running on the gas and then maybe on the back nine of his pro career. Make sure you subscribe to Fighting Words, and until next week, we'll discuss something else, but we'll talk to you later. We're out.